Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream. Today is August the 3rd. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our H.O.D Recovery Services. You can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. I'm going to do your Just for Today in a meditation. Hope that you're doing good this morning. Okay, that is not the right one. Let's get the right one up there really quick, okay? All right, here we go. August 3rd, trusting people. Many of us would have had nowhere else to go if we could not have trusted in a groups and members. Basic text, page 84. Trusting people is a risk. Human beings are notoriously forgetful, unreliable, and imperfect. Most of us come from backgrounds where betrayal and sensitivity among friends were common occurrences. Even our most reliable friends weren't very reliable. By the time we arrive at the doors of NA, most of us have hundreds of experiences bearing out our conviction that people are untrustworthy. Yet our recovery demands that we trust people. We are faced with this dilemma. People are not always trustworthy, yet we must trust them. How do we do that, given the evidence of our past? First, we remind ourselves that the rules of active addiction don't apply in recovery. Most of the fellow members are doing their level best to live by the spiritual principles we learned in the program. Second, we remind ourselves that we aren't 100% reliable either. We will surely disappoint someone in our lives, no matter how hard we try not to. Third, and most importantly, we realize we need to trust our fellow members of NA. Our lives are at stake, and the only way we can stay clean is to trust these well-intentioned folks who admittedly aren't perfect. Just for today, I will trust my fellow members. Though certainly not perfect, they are my best hope. I like the reading for today. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the wee version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Trusting people, how are you doing with that? How are you dealing with feeling like people aren't trustworthy, but knowing that you need to have relationships that lean into your recovery and that you trust those people to be your eyes and ears and to give you feedback and to not let you die in silence? If they see something, speak up to you and say, hey, what's going on with you? Let's go have some coffee or something like that. So we need to trust people, right? Especially those in recovery. We need to have some general sense that the goodwill that we talk about is in operation with the people in recovery. So I'm wondering, how are you, dealing with that? I really like how it says here that most of us have hundreds of experiences bearing out our conviction that people are untrustworthy. And I was wondering, like, hundreds, right? It sounds like an exaggeration. But when you think about it, you think about active addiction and all of the epic fails we had while we were using. And then think about all of the stuff that probably didn't go our way, that we were angry about. Think about all of the resentments we established. And then think about those things that were people harmed us and were justifiably hurt by those people, right? So when you think about all of that prior to your coming into Narcotics Anonymous, it probably is hundreds of experiences that would justify why, you wouldn't trust people. So now we're talking about coming into recovery. And this reading says that the things that applied out there when we were using, they don't apply in here. The rules of active addiction are not the same rules for active recovery. They're polar opposites. So when we come into recovery, we should, if we're working our program, see that we're less offended. We have less issues with individuals. We are more forgiving. We are more trusting, right? The people that are most like us, we are most dependent on to be able to have the we of the program operational in our lives. So now let's go a little bit further and think about your level of trust with the people in the rooms. And the people that you don't trust, probably for some people, it would be the majority of their home group, right? They've been recovering with these people for years. They've seen the coming and going, the relapsing, the cheating, the lying. They've seen all of those things. But can you turn your focus to the recovery piece? Can you turn your focus to the things that you've seen that were delightful, peaceful, and full of recovery and happiness and joy and a sense of goodwill? How many of those instances do you have that you can pull on? And if it's not very many, that's okay. It's not that we're looking for perfection, but maybe what we're looking at. The point that I was making is that in active addiction, we don't have a whole lot of positivity that we're looking at. So, of course, things would add up, hundreds of experiences would add up. But in recovery, we have to switch our eyesight, right? We have to switch our view. We can no longer look at things from that mindset of using lying, cheating, manipulation, resentment, and for in some instances, just plain hatred, right? Those don't work in the rooms. So now let's focus on you and I becoming more trusting of other people. What does that look like? Especially post-pandemic, what does trusting other people in the rooms of recovery look like? It might, for some people, it might be making yourself available to socialize, going to, it's summertime, so people are having retreats at campsites and stuff like that. Maybe it's about you showing up, not really knowing all of the people that well and going to the event anyway, and making up your mind that you're going to walk away with a few phone numbers. And before you leave that event, you're going to text those people and make sure they save your number. And then once a week, text them or call them. We have to start making these little baby steps towards becoming better, towards becoming trusting. Is this a serious topic? Yeah, it is. Because if you're the person that comes in a room and you have absolutely no relationships with any of the other people in the fellowship, and you're always looking at them, right? And not attaching yourself and looking at the similarities. What happens when life throws you a curveball? You won't be able to catch it. You won't be able to knock it out the park. You won't be able to be in the game because you are not attached to anyone that can even assist you. No one knows your name. No one knows, what type of work you do. No one knows what your struggles are because you're a flower on the wall and you don't really participate in meetings. So change that. That's what I want for you. So I want for you to start trusting people and start taking tiny little steps. Maybe there's just one person in the meeting you're like, man, I wonder what they would be like to get to know, right? Invite them out for coffee and see what happens. We need to trust fellow members. And no, they're not perfect, but neither are we, right? This reading is very sobering, right? It's very real. It's not a lot of energy, but it's the truth. And that's what we're about. We're about changing our life from being a mask and a lie to changing it to being the truth and authenticity of how we relate to individuals. And so I challenge you with that. I challenge you to get to a meeting and get to know someone. I challenge you to get on a Zoom meeting, um, and get some numbers and actually contact these people. You probably have tons of people in your phone that are in recovery and you haven't reached out to them. So just reach out to them. Maybe it's a sponsee sister. Maybe it's an old sponsee sister. Maybe it's an old sponsor. Maybe it's your current sponsor. Maybe it's just the lady, the newcomer, and you took her number. Reach out to her and start developing trust. Just like all of the other spiritual principles we have talked about this week, trust is a spiritual principle and it's developed over time. So let's get started. My name is MightyStream and I will be talking to you tomorrow.